Good evening and welcome to Just One Song. I should probably not say good evening because I don't know what time you're listening to this.
Easy for us.
This is a new format we're trying out. Still trying to figure out a name for it. I'm sure we'll have something up by the time this episode is released, and then we can edit it in, or who cares. With me tonight, I'm Kurt Bemke. I have Adam Orozco and Leandro Barrientos.
Howdy, howdy, howdy.
Hey, what's up, buddies?
Hey, how y'all doing?
Been a while.
Just a little bit.
Decent amount of time. What are we talking about tonight?
On the agenda, let's see what our notes say. Looks like we're talking about, it's kind of a big one, a broad topic of music, the listener, the effects of cancel culture, and the responsibility as a listener.
Art from the artist, separating art from the artist.
I was trying to be like vague with that because that's like the cliche.
But it's
made it sound like a beautiful headline. New York Times would use.
It's
a double-edged sword. It's my worst my best and worst feature is like I like to not go for low-hanging fruit as far as like what I want to say or write, and it becomes a little convoluted in the process.
I know,
but that's just
I love the convolutedness. Give it more.
Oh man,
convolute it and poot it.
What does that mean to you, Adam? Separating art from the artist. The old cliche that I see Leo cringing at every time I say that.
Well, it's hard. You know what? I took a second to like really dive into it and like think about the topic, and I kind of felt like there's three kind of subcategories that people really fall into, because you can't really just say, oh, with this one subject, you have to take into context, you know?
Sure.
So for me, it's like you have to look at it from a moral kind of standpoint, a historical kind of standpoint, which could be broken down into more kind of things. And then like, are you supporting the artist standpoint?
Yeah.
And so those are the kind of the three perceptions
I
have. And so for Eric Clapton, for instance, he would fall under
we brought on the show before. We've talked about him.
Yeah.
I want to talk about him more.
Not the best person.
No, I will talk about. I know Leo's like dying. Like, let's talk about Eric Clapton.
No, I'm not. I
really.
We said all there is to say. I have some thoughts retroactively on Eric Clapton, but I want to hear what Adam has to say.
Yeah, well, I guess for me, it's like once I find out what their story is and what atrocities they've had, if it was horrendous, on a moral standpoint, like if somebody tripped somebody when they were 5 years old and now they're an artist, I'm not going to hate who they are as a person now. You know what I mean?
Sure.
But if they, if they did something horrendous, like the Chris Brown case with Rihanna incident, then it's like, okay, I can't support you, as a person or as an artist.
I think that's funny territory. Like, as far as that's a subjective take on morality, because we have societal standards of what morality is based off of law. Like, we have laws in place that
law is an attempt to objectify morality.
Yes. So we have these kind of parameters set in place in the social farm to keep the animals from running amok. When it comes to like all the examples that you're giving, I think there's a fine line between someone tweeted some racist diatribe 10 years ago, or R. Kelly was peeing on girls and running a sex traffic ring for the last 20 years. Yeah. I think one is worse than the other. And I think most people do.
Yeah.
In the court of public opinion and in the court of law, those have very different outcomes. But I think cancel culture, when it comes to music, has been blurring the lines. We were just talking about another cancel
Disagree
culture.
on that a little bit though, but I think cancel culture is blown up for celebrities more than it should be. Like who's who should who should be canceled? Who deserves to be canceled? You know, or who deserves to lose like one job? Like I don't want to spend too much time outside of the music world, but like Gina Carano from The Mandalorian tweeted some anti-Semitic stuff, and Disney let her go. But like she lost one job, and Disney doesn't care about morality. All they cared about was during the pandemic was not making $80 trillion. We're making 70 instead, and her opinions was going to affect
Bottom line, yeah.
their bottom line. It had nothing to do with morality. They don't care what she thinks. All it does is their money.
We should always be really dubious when we see commercials that like Citibank stands with Black Lives Matter. Like fucking Citibank.
Yeah,
Like,
right.
Oh, sure, okay. And then or even Pride Month, and like Target slaps rainbow colors everywhere, and like they do all this stuff. But in China, like all this stuff isn't. Their moral standpoint only exists where it's profitable, and I think that's why I have a problem with cancel culture, because they put it on the masses, canceling these people. And the Dr. Seuss the Dr. Seuss books being unpublished, like they took them out. That no one asked for that to happen. His estate did it on their own. They decided to stop printing those books, but then all these people on the right were saying, "Oh, it's the mob of the libs and the left that's canceling Dr. Seuss." We're not. Nobody asked for that to happen.
and I don't think cancel culture is necessarily one political side of the aisle or the other. Like both are
right.
culprits of it. Like it just may look different according to like what the powers that be. Like I think the beauty of it, I mean, there is some sort of like social awakening that now that we have a technology that allows the masses to have a huge vocal opinion that affects the way that these giant corporations run and do affect the bottom line because there's power in where we spend our money. That's what I think all the hubbub is about. Now, the issue there is like, are we there? It was mentioned in speaking of cancel culture again, are we punching up to authority with cancel culture? Are we trying to like force like, because it seems like the dictionary definition of cancel culture is to ostracize someone for things they've done in the past, right? And when are we holding corporations accountable so that we are eliciting some sort of like positive change socially, or are we just kind of like stroking our egos and saying, look how good we are as people because we don't listen to Morrissey from the Smiths anymore because he's a bigot. Like what are we doing as a society and as people when we take the pious high road and say that, oh, I don't listen to Thriller during Halloween anymore?
It's all about money, though.
Amen.
You vote with your dollar. You stream something, you're directing funds to this person, and like however your morals have to match where you put your money. They do for that to make an opinion. So it's really under the court of public opinion who should have the privileges of celebrity and the power to have this platform. And do I want to support? No, I don't. I don't want to listen to their music because that means I'm streaming and the money I spend in streaming is giving them royalties. I don't want them to have royalties.
I may have prematurely gave you that amen because when you said it's all about money, I meant in like the grand scheme. I thought we were talking about like capitalism in general.
Yeah.
I also think like, okay, yeah, you're using you are aware of one of your favorite artists of all time. You found out something that doesn't align with you either politically, ideologically, or morally. So you have a conviction to, should I support this artist by streaming their music? I mean, what if you have their vinyl? What if you're not streaming their music? What if you're just going to put it on the CD player? Like you can nitpick on like the way that we support these artists. Like,
well, I think at this point, I kind of feel like we're talking about like the market, and like it's not just about one individual person. At this point, it's like how's the market going to I guess, support or not support the artist, because at some point, somebody's going to do something so horrendous that it's going to screw up their career, and there's no coming back from it. It's like the whole, what's that one artist that incited a riot? The one from McDonald's?
Travis Scott?
Ronald McDonald?
Yeah, Ronald McDonald.
Oh, are we going to talk about Astro World?
Yeah, why not? Right?
I don't know. Okay, so there's like a fine line between, I hate using the boogeyman of like everything's cancel culture now. Like, I think people have always been like, I'm going to use my better judgment and not listen to Travis Scott anymore because he didn't really do anything when 8 people were killed in a 50,000 person show at his concerts in Texas last weekend. That pre-exists cancel culture. Like we're retroactively looking at like even things in the past that happened and slapping like, oh, everybody's just cancel culturing and they're just trying to cancel everything and it's the woke mob. It's like
blanket
people
statement to incite anger with people, and that's why I'm using it.
Same here. I think it's funny, but the Travis Scott thing is crazy.
Yeah.
All over TikTok, there's people like putting videos and stuff of like that. Okay, so that's not an isolated event either. Like that has happened. Like there was a Pearl Jam case where like 8-9 people died. People die at these huge, giant concerts. People OD.
Oh yeah,
99.
EDC. At least 8 to 10 people die a year. It's a 3-day concert in
Wait,
desert.
Really? Every year?
Oh yeah.
No way.
Oh, easy. At least.
I don't know. We need a fact checker. We need a Jamie from Joe Rogan on our show.
Right?
To fact check. I'm gonna go online right now. How many people die
at EDC?
I'm gonna fact check that.
Oh yeah. Check this out.
That's crazy.
Death rate at EDC. Well, I know that
drug overdoses.
What was it? LA Hardfest. One of them started at LA, and then they moved it out of LA because a kid died. An underage kid snuck in and died.
EDC, and it was 2 15-year-old girls, and they had snuck in. Oh, I want to say it was like 2005 or 6.
It was early. It was before it is what it is today. It was like it used to be in LA. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then they moved it out to the deserts in Vegas, I think in like around 08, 09, something around there. Because, I guess LA had made those legal. It's around that time. So, they just couldn't handle it anymore.
I was talking to my buddy of mine. He and I actually had this conversation the other day about morality and art and like, do you vote with your dollar? And he texted me the other day. He goes, hey, I was arguing against you, but after the Travis Scott thing, he's like, I think I agree with you. He's like, I can't listen, because he was a Travis Scott fan. Like, I can't listen to his music knowing that he willfully continued his show and from his platform 20 something feet up in the air,
he could see all the cop cars and the ambulances.
He kept going, and he prevented emergency services from coming in to help. And like he had incited a bit of like I don't say incited some violence. I would get careful, libel and slander, or whatever. But like he was responsible. When you're at that position where you can see everything, unless you're like Stevie Wonder, like.
Oh man!
I think Stevie Wonder would even have the extra sense. They'd tell him in his ear. They'd be like, "Yo, Stevie."
But what I'm trying to say, is he has no excuse to not know what's going on. Security is there. He's got people on the stage. He's got ear, and he made the choice to keep going. And so my buddy's like, I can't listen to it anymore in good faith.
It's funny that this was the straw that broke the camel's back. I would think that it's Travis Scott's terrible music that made him stop listening to him. But that's not the case.
Okay. So, all right. You're getting on another point I want to talk about is like, when you talk about the art versus the artist, is the art really good enough to continue listening to the artist? And this is part of why I keep going to Eric Clapton too, is he's considered a rock and roll god by rock fans, but is he really that good? Like, is the art really good enough to where you can be like,
And I've had this conversation before, specifically with like British
than Eric Clapton.
British invasion guitar gods from like the 60s and 70s, like basically took all their chops from like young black kids that were playing rhythm and blues, Delta blues, and invented rock and roll, or like black kids in like the 50s. And then it went over to the UK and came back as a British invasion. And like, then all of a sudden you have these marketable, good looking white guys that they could sell to white crowds and white radio stations. So like, even like his entire career is predicated on something that necessarily I wouldn't even say is his. He's a great guitarist. He's got some great tunes. I like a lot of Cream songs. Him, like, I just would never in my like music listening experience throughout the day do I ever just put Eric Clapton on. I have a fun bone to pick with him because it's just for me it's like low hanging fruit, as far as like, just because of the demographic of like, I just have this mental picture of like a middle-aged dad with like a flame guitar shirt that just got back from happy hour at like TGI Fridays, that just like ate bottomless wings. And someone said like Eric Clapton sucks. It's like, hey brother, you don't know shit about music. And then he makes you sit down in his garage and puts like an obscure like Clapton live album, maybe obscure enough, the one where he's like goes on like a racist rant about saying keeping Britain pure. That'd be hilarious if that was like, that'd be such a great sketch. Oh my god, if you had like some dad defending Eric Clapton
word per word, like it's a lyric in the song.
No, he puts the live album on of him saying that speech at that show. The one where Eric Clapton did say that like, hey, keep Britain white and get all these like brown people out of there. Totally. That'd be hilarious.
Dropped so many racial slurs in that speech. I read the transcript of it. It was bananas.
How bad was it? I didn't hear it.
I'll send you the article after this. It's
several.
We should have pulled it up. We were not great podcast hosts. Here's the thing too, and I was thinking about this a lot since the last time we talked about Eric Clapton. I was like, I've changed so much as a person, and I've looked back. You know what the fucking worst thing is? Actually, no, it's a great thing because it lets you know that you grow. How cringe it is that Facebook does, like, hey, Facebook remembers 9 years ago when you,
oh gosh,
pooped your pants at the Arcade Fire show. Like, that never happened, or did it? It might have. I don't know. I drank a lot in the 20s. It's part of the show. Like, oh my god! Did you go to their show last week? They made everybody in the audience shit their pants, like some South Park Brown Note shit. Let's pull up the article of. So here's another great thing that we need to remember too with music, cancel culture, and like whether or not I'm morally obligated to stop listening to someone because they said something racist. Can people change? And do we as a society, individuals, I feel like I would hope that everybody here has changed for the better in their progression as a human being. I for sure have changed so much in like just a year or 2 years. So I could think that like Eric Clapton said these things, these shitty racist things in what, 69, 70, so around there, I don't know, ballpark.
Late 70s.
Couple decades, like more than a couple decades ago. Can people change? Can they change for the better? I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
You know, I just saw an article about some another guitarist who used to be friends with Eric Clapton who's cutting ties with him because he is such a terrible person still. He's anti-vax, anti-mask, like all this. He's just an unpleasant person overall. But the broader point, I'll say a little bit, and then Adam, I want to hear what you think too. Is I think people have to make an active effort to change if they care about what the public opinion is. I think it depends on who you upset, who you wrong. If you wrong an individual, the only apology that matters is yours to that person. And if they forgive you, the court of public opinion, we feel entitled to an apology left and right. And even then, we're very slow, if not impossible, to forgive the change in certain people.
Ooh, okay. So the apology to an individual as opposed to the apology to a people group. Individual apology. Brett Kavanaugh apologizing to the
Christine Blasey Ford.
Victim of the sexual assault. That like that's a one-on-one apology.
Yes.
So, but that has social implications. That is almost like an apology, not just an apology, but it's holding accountable. Like you,
absolutely, yeah.
Apologizing that one-on-one has a social implication for those in power that speaks louder than words. That shows like, hey, we're not going to stand for this on a grander scale. So it's what I think it's super ironic that we are so bent on this idea, and not just the left or the right, specifically the left, but we're so bent on this idea of like positive change and progression and moving forward, yet we're not able to move forward if we can't acknowledge that like even the best of us did some shitty things in our past, because we're all flawed human beings. And we're getting to the point now that all of these things, regardless if they were truly atrocious or if they were just, minor, I wasn't thinking at the time and I said this thing on Twitter, or I was just young and dumb. All that shit's being documented in a digital forum where you can just scroll down for 100 pages on a Twitter feed or an RSS feed and find out. Like, I promise you, you can find them. Like, if Mother Teresa were around today, like, you'd find. Actually, well, that was a bad example. Yeah,
I wouldn't go that far.
Yeah, but, I mean, we're trying to keep it. I don't. If you could find the most saintly amongst us and still find some sort of. And Mother Teresa's a perfect example. Like, she's not just all. She wasn't completely horrible evil. Did she do some terrible things? But at the same time, she did do a lot, right? I mean, you can't not say that she didn't do great things while also doing.
Let's keep it to music right now. You're right. No, you're right.
Hundreds of people there.
Yeah, all of our fans and people are going to upset. But no, it's true. You that's a good point. Adam, what do you think?
Can people change? I don't know. Did Cardi B change?
Well, she got Bridge.
Yeah, but did she change? I mean, what, didn't she admit to like drugging guys?
She like dude would go over to her house to sleep with her, and then she would rob them. Did she drug them?
Yeah, she said she drugged them.
Or did they get
robbed them?
Oh, really?
No, she drugged them. Yeah. It's I don't know. And then she goes on and like just has a bunch of music that just has like bad implications in them. You know what I mean?
A different person from that. Because when she was talking about that, I remember this. She was kind of laughing about it.
Yeah.
And
100%.
It was like an empowerment type thing, which, look, the title of this series should be called 3 Straight Dudes. But like, for whatever this is worth, like, I'm just kind of like, okay, empowerment, fine. But still a really, you drugged someone. You strip them of their integrity as a human being to take advantage of them, regardless of who they are. I don't know. You did the preemptive thing, the preemptive terrible thing. I don't know.
Yeah. So for like me, I just like, I can't support somebody after they've done something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's fair.
But like, again, it's all on a spectrum. Like, it's
suppose in like 5 years she expresses regret and remorse for not just the actions she did, but like her.
Oh yeah, that'd be totally different.
It's holding yourself morally accountable for your actions.
Mm-hmm.
You made a good point too, and Leo made a good point too about like playing the records, versus streaming, passively supporting someone instead of actively. We in the classical music world, we regard Wagner as like the greatest contributor to opera. But he was a horrible anti-Semite, exceedingly homophobic, crazy national. He was the Naziest Nazi before the Nazis were a thing.
Some
You
would
know,
say a huge influence on the work of Hitler. Some would say like
he
his
definitely.
early stuff. His early stuff was.
Everyone should say that. Absolutely. Fly to the Valkyries was like Hitler's jam. He's like, I brush my teeth to that. I make love to that. I
Do a
I
little
do meth
speed.
to that, you
Oh,
know?
yeah.
Smoke a little meth.
So we look at Wagner. Is it okay to listen to Wagner knowing those things? And I think to an extent it is. If you're listening to Wagner on a purely technical basis, the technical aspect of his music, he's dead. He's not collecting royalties. It's all that's fine. But I think for discourse in the music world, it's important to look at his contemporaries who were involved in the opera scene, specifically his mentor, Giacomo Meyerbeer. You guys know about Meyerbeer?
No.
He
Meyer
was,
beer. I thought it was your beer.
hey, puns. No, he was everything Wagner hated. Okay, he was homosexual, he was Jewish, and he was a German national who defected to. He became an expatriate to Italy. He changed his first name to Giacomo, but kept his last name as Meyerbeer. So he was everything Wagner hated, but he taught Wagner almost everything he knew. You know, without Meyerbeer, you don't have Wagner. So Meyerbeer made some really big contributions to the world of opera. Wagner just took it a step further. But like, I don't hear discourse about Meyerbeer so much unless it's in, some our professors at Cal Poly Pomona talked about him, because of course they did. So it's like maybe we should start recognizing the contributions outside of the norm. Yes, let's look at Wagner's contribution to how the modern theater is set up on a technical basis. He designed the orchestra pit. He developed, the way to properly stage a show. Like his contributions were huge, but there's more out there that we need to talk about and focus on more, I think.
We also like to judge from the lens of our present day morality.
Hindsight of 2020. Yeah.
And we're able to look back and like in any point of history, there's going to be something problematic.
Yeah.
We're going to look back. We don't know what we're doing right. I mean, actually, I have a pretty good guess on the things that are happening right now that we're going to look back in 50, 60 years, even 100 years removed. We're looking back in the time periods. Do you guys remember? And this was a contemporary, and I think it will hit a little bit closer to home with audience members in Southern California. Burger Records.
Joe's.
Burger Records. The Growlers were on them. Super popular band, early 2000s. They were around when I was gigging and playing in a band in Southern California. They had, and on paper you would say, quote unquote, this is the effects of cancel culture, but they were doing some horrendous, underage, deviant sexual shit for years. Like their whole business model was like built on allowing this. Like they created an environment that allowed 13, 14 young teenage girls to get taken advantage of by these predatory, 20 odd something guys for years. And it blew up all over Instagram. Pitchfork did an article on it. There was an article in the LA Times. And that one hits close to home because Burger Records they were based out of Santa Ana.
Yep.
And they went defunct they basically said, we're closing our doors. And this is why I hate using the label cancel culture for this. This is just holding organizations, corporations, companies, people, and like collectives accountable for shitty things.
Yeah.
Now, putting that in perspective with like Wagner and historically bigoted, terrible people in the past who have also created quote unquote beautiful works of art that have informed our collective idea of what the canon is. those people, like, they weren't getting canceled in the time that they were doing, like, they were allowed to, like, those in power were more than likely partaking in these like cancelable offenses.
Yeah.
And they didn't have uh this there wasn't this ability to hold power accountable
Sure.
that we have now.
Yeah, that we have now.
So
You're
would
right.
you guys say that it's kind of more like we can use old messed up people's music if it's a bridge to contemporary forms, allowing us to figure out, oh, this is how music developed in a certain fashion, in a certain way?
I think
I
so.
think I think we should study it because we can't forget our past or where we came
But
from
we have
as
to
far as
credit where credit is due. And I feel bad because I was like, oh, we should talk about Meyerbeer. And then I listed like a bunch of like Wagner's accomplishments. So just to get on the record, um, really quick about Meyerbeer, because I gotta make my point. He's the most frequently performed opera composer during the 19th century, linking Mozart and Wagner. So between Mozart and Wagner, Giacomo Meyerbeer was the composer to listen to, and he gave the genre of grand opera its decisive character. So with I sorry, I feel like I gotta make this a postscript to what I was talking about, but it's true. Like we'll talk about, oh, we should do this, and I totally didn't do it, but he is critical to what opera is or what it became, what it is today. So, yes, we should study Wagner, but we have to study the bridges that the awful stuff links to. The good, you have to look at that too. So,
I think that you just hit the nail on the head because humanity is nuanced. There lives both goodness and darkness inside of us. We make an active choice of the things that we consume and that we put our money towards, and we have to like reconcile with that. I think that's I always use this analogy of like anytime there's a new technology that's thrust upon a civilization or like society, it takes them a while to figure out how to use it without killing themselves. When the car was introduced, any wide, like the gun, the revolver, people don't really know, like you release these things en masse to people and they don't really know how to use it. And then they're like, oh, we should probably make some, these are some laws or these are some like moral structures of like how these things should work. We're going to put stoplights out. We're going to put road signs down so that you're not crashing into each other here. Same thing with social media. Same thing with the technology that we have. Something more powerful than the Apollo mission computers inside of our pocket that we can connect to with anybody in the world. We're still trying to figure out as humanity. We're in the very infant stages of like
responsibility,
the implications that it has for the future.
Any thoughts from you, man?
Yeah, I think that at this point, once I find out the story, or once anybody finds out a story of, somebody who's done horrible things, they should really take a second to think about, whether they should keep listening to that person because, they are a bad influence. And, everybody has their own morals and things like that. And I do think that some people can change, but down to it, you got to make your own judgment on that. And, we're not looking for a utopia for everyone to be perfect, but we're looking for, people to do the best that they can.
We want to get close.
Yeah.
I want to consider chocolate. We love chocolate, but a lot of chocolate production involves slavery. So if we can't figure out a way to get chocolate without slavery, or at least a better way, I've seen this on the internet before, but maybe we should reconsider us having chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if we can equate that understanding of morality with something we really love to the other things we consume that are objectively a luxury, if we have that in the back of our minds collectively, I think it's a good step for a general rule in getting to where we need to be, Adam and Leo and anyone else.
I think that's a good spot to end it, guys. What do you think?
Thank you guys so much. Let's do this again. Let's have another topic. I appreciate you both.
Appreciate you, bud.
Thanks for having us on. I think that there's a plethora. There's so much richness that we can discuss in just this topic of like social accountability and music. I mean, music is such an important part of like who we are, and we identify it with so much. I think that's why it's so hard for us to have this conversation.
And if you're listening and you have some thoughts, send us a message, leave a comment, and then maybe we'll do another video talking more about this. But thanks you guys for listening. This was just one song with a new episode format. We'll figure out what it's called soon. Okay, guys. Good night.
Bye, everyone. Good night.
Woo!